Hey there, Tisha here, and welcome to Season 3 Health Crisis in Real Time, Episode 2 of the Hurdle2Hope Show. And yeah, thank you so much for everyone who's reached out and watched last week's or listened to last week's episode where I shared all about what's been happening to me over the last few weeks and why I ended up in ICU for a whole 8 days. If you haven't listened or watched that episode, so it's on YouTube, on any of your favourite podcasting apps or platforms, have a listen now because that will really set the scene for what we're then talking about today. And yeah, it'll just give you a little bit of insight into what's happened, and then come back and join us. For those of you who are still here, episode 2 I've called Boundaries Before Body Breakdown. And what I want to share is what happened leading up to me ending up in ICU. I'm not going to give heaps of personal details, but what I'll do is share, the impact of what happened. And in reflecting on that, all it came down to really was my inability to have strong boundaries around my well-being. And this is such an important topic. It's something I talk about with my coaching clients who are living with chronic illness, but it's just important for those of us, I live with chronic illness. I was going to say those of us who don't live with chronic illness, but it's just as important for anyone listening. If you're feeling really healthy at the moment and, we don't know what's underneath the surface, and I didn't know leading up to my ICU admission. I had no idea that I had so much inflammation in my body, no idea I was dealing with some type of bowel disease. So it's so important to protect our well-being. And one way to do that is to have very strong and clear boundaries, to not be afraid of prioritising our well-being. So that's some of what we're going to talk about today, as this is one of the lessons I learnt in reflecting on the past 4 weeks. Okay, so there was a lot of stress in my life leading up to Christmas. There's a few issues with the build and all at Daisy Hill. If you don't know, we're living on 100 acres of land off the grid at Daisy Hill, and a few hiccups along the way. But I was getting through that, and that was okay. Then post-Christmas, and it's really tricky when you share a lot of your life, and I'm more than happy to be very open in relation to what's happening to me, but I'm very aware too that with some personal relationships, I don't want to give all of those details away up front. This is not in anything in relation to my relationship with my amazing partner, Andrew, but there was some absolute tension with some relationships of those very close to us. And it was such a difficult period. And the details don't really matter. It's the impact that had on my body. And it's one of those situations where I'm sure you find yourself in as well, where you're trying to manage and keep everyone happy. You're trying to keep things calm. You're trying to do the right thing for everyone. And if you're a bit of an empath like me, you absorb the tension and everything around you. You're wanting to make sure that everyone's needs are met, and you often prioritise those needs and keep the peace for everyone, again, at the expense of your own well-being. And you worry so much about everyone else, and you try and not play out different scenarios if things don't go well. And it's really hard to detach emotionally. And I think there becomes this illusion of coping. I thought, okay, sleeping okay. I wasn't eating okay. My stomach was a mess, and I was finding it harder and harder to digest food, back and forth a bit to the bathroom, a lot of reflux and all. And I thought, okay, my stomach's just a little bit upset, so I better switch off a bit emotionally. I better, meditate a little bit more and try and get rest. And I was sleeping, so I think, okay, this is under control. This is okay. What I didn't realize is those physical symptoms were my body trying to tell me, no, you're not coping. If you keep this situation as is, if you keep trying to keep everyone else happy, your body is going to break down. Because what I really didn't realize is that although you think emotionally you're coping, your body absorbs all of this tension, and sometimes it's impossible to stop that. You can say stop stressing, you can say stop worrying, and you can switch your mind off a bit, but your body, it's really hard to stop it from taking on that stress. And the lesson for all of us in what I've experienced is we don't know what underlying health conditions we have. And that's not to scare us, but I was thinking, okay, especially before Christmas, okay, I'm a bit stressed about this, but hey, my cancer's in remission, great. This stress isn't leading to more cancer, so that's good. I'm thinking, okay, I'm walking okay. My MS is okay, struggling a bit, but doing okay. But little did I know that the inflammation in my body was increasing at a rapid rate. I had no idea that this wasn't just a little bit of upset stomach. I had no idea that this, in the end, there was so much inflammation that I was passing blood, that the lining of my colon was being passed as well. No idea. So this is a reminder for us all that stress, yes, it can be a mind thing that you're trying to switch off your mind, but it's the physical. And that's what I really, really want to hone in on with this. This is what's really helped me in terms of thinking about boundaries during this whole time, because I've had a lot of time to reflect. So I started thinking about and visualizing the boundary around me and thinking, that boundary is there to protect my physical well-being, my emotional well-being, and my mental health. And that boundary needs a gatekeeper. And sometimes I'm not that strong gatekeeper. So that boundary, I need to have a gatekeeper on that line around me. And that gatekeeper needs to be stronger than what I am sometimes, and say, okay, I'm the gatekeeper of your physical health, of your, emotional well-being. And sometimes that gatekeeper says, say, no, piss off. You can't come in. You are not good for my health. And sometimes that's really, really hard to say. But we've got to remember, when we're living with a chronic illness, and again, even if you're not, that protecting your nervous system from absorbing that stress, that's your priority. Protecting your energy and not giving it away to others, and others who don't appreciate it. Because the reality is the consequences of not having that gatekeeper. And again, I physically am now thinking of a little person in that boundary around me, opening and shutting the gate, because the reality is when your health collapses, the consequences are yours. I'm lying in a hospital bed for 4 weeks. I'm there by myself when I'm being, the machines are going off at night, when my blood pressure drops to 66/50, when I'm thinking my body's shutting down. I'm there by myself. And that's not saying I don't have an amazing support system, but in those early hours of the morning, that's where me alone. The person or people who have come into your gate and have not, who have got through your boundaries, they're not there. They're probably not even thinking about you or worrying about you even being in ICU. And I promise you, when you're in ICU and thinking, was this worth getting so sick for because you don't want to let people down? And it's not. And that you don't want to hurt people's feelings, or you want to keep the peace, or you don't want to challenge people or call out bad behaviour. And it's not. it's not worth getting sick for. And that's what we've got to keep in mind. Our health is paramount, because without our health, we have nothing. We can't do anything. We can't be there for those that we want to be there for. So, yeah, I'm keeping these episodes short because I don't have much energy. But I really want you to start reflecting on your boundaries as well. Because as I said, this is like one of the number one things people talk to me about. It's so important to have strong boundaries, but we only can do that if we're not worried about other people's reactions and we're confident that our well-being, it's okay to prioritize that. So, yeah, just start reflecting on that boundaries aren't optional, that there's something that you have to become better at doing, and you can practice that and have those conversations. I talk to myself a lot in the hospital room, and have those conversations and become more and more confident about setting those boundaries and working out what those boundaries are for you. And keep reminding yourself that these boundaries are absolutely critical for preserving your well-being. If you're feeling great, great. Keep feeling great. If you're not feeling great, even more important, reflect on why you're not feeling so good, and are some things you're doing that you shouldn't be doing because they're not honouring your well-being. And then keep reminding yourself, if you're ignoring your limits and what is possible within the week or the day, if you're ignoring that, it's our bodies that pay the price. And keep reminding yourself, if you don't have a gatekeeper to say, yes, you can come in, no, you can't come in, these are the type of, behaviours that are acceptable or not acceptable. If that gatekeeper is not working in that boundary around you, your health will suffer. And we don't know, for me, I could have died. And there was another nurse actually had a similar situation to me, and she shared, this was a night shift nurse, and we're talking about 4 o'clock at night, and she also had colitis, and she said, I'd had this condition, I didn't know, but this really horrible situation happened, and the stress caused it to come on, and that's the consequence and something she has to manage now, years later. So boundaries are so important, because once someone gets through and your health is not being prioritised, we just don't know what the consequence is. And for me, I could have died. And that is making me a lot stronger in terms of having these boundaries really, really firm. But I hope you don't have to go through this situation, and I hope this is a reminder to you as well to absolutely have strong boundaries. A nice quick episode, as I said, boundary. I have to honour my limited energy, but yeah, and I'm sorry, it's getting dark outside, so I think I'm getting a bit blurry if you're watching on YouTube. Again, thank you so much for all the support I've been receiving. I really appreciate it. Follow me at Hurdle2Hope on Instagram, also at Hurdle2Hope or Hurdle2Hope page on Facebook. Also, if you're living with a chronic illness, visit tisharose.com, and I'm really getting into a whole heap more in relation to chronic illness coaching, because I've become even more passionate about it, because learned a lot over the last month. Look forward to chatting to you really soon. I'm sorry, I'm looking at myself on the screen and very blurry, but hopefully you can see me okay. Bye.
Thank you for joining me on the Hurdle2Hope Show. Please help me spread the word. Share this episode or others to friends, family members who you think will benefit from these conversations. Don't forget, we're also on YouTube now, at Hurdle2Hope is the channel. And if you need support, resources, or a speaker for an event, please visit Hurdle2Hope.com. Don't forget, Hurdle2Hope with the number 2. Enjoy your week, and if you're going through a difficult time, please remember, even in the darkest moments, hope is always there.